Welcome, everybody. This is the DVMUG Zoom meeting for Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. Today we have some news all about the updates, if you haven't noticed this week. We have videos starting out with the M3 Macbook Airs that were released last week, and we have a video about one of the updates has features. That's iOS 17.4. That actually has some stuff in it. All the rest of them are pretty much security updates. Then we have a very short one from Apple about turning your iPhone on and off, and a couple from Gary, and one from Ellen. We'll go forward to the first news item. This is the list of the news, excuse me. So new MacBook Airs, OS updates for everything you can have, every single thing that you own, including 3 versions on the back on the OS and 2 on iOS. And these are articles about them. So this one from Tidbits. These clickable links are on the BBS in the meeting notice PDF files. You can click and read the whole articles. 13 and 15-inch MacBook Air M3s. M2 was moved down to the base model at $999, and the M1 was dropped. So pretty nice computers, same prices. macOS, watchOS, tvOS, HomePod software, and Vision OS, all updates. No particular features. So you want to read about it, it's a clickable link on the BBS. Go forward, please. Oh, come on.
And GarageBand came out with a security update today.
For GarageBand?
Yeah.
Okay, iOS 17.4 does have some new features, and we're going to have a video about that later. Mostly it's about the EU changes and the third-party app store that's going to be happening over in the EU only.
Question.
Yes.
If somebody travels to the EU with an American phone or iPad, will it be changed by just being there?
What I read is I think so, because it said if you download something over there, it'll work for 30 days after you get back, and then it will stop working.
Oh.
I didn't read the whole thing because I'm not going to the EU. Okay. OS X Daily has a nice article. This wasn't widely publicized most places, but as typical lately, iOS 16 and iOS 15 security updates. So that's quite a ways back. So you might want to check software update, or on your phone and iPad, it's settings, general software update. And Ventura and Monterey also software updates. Also with Monterey and Ventura, there's not a macOS updates, but separately in your software updates will be Safari. So you want to get the current Safari just like there's in Sonoma. So be checking all that stuff. Okay. These are the videos we're going to have, starting off with the MacBook Air, a semi-short one, then a pretty good one on the new features in iOS 17.4. Very short Apple one, and 2 from Gary and 1 from Ellen. Any questions about any of the news? Comments? Okay, we shall move forward. There we go. This is from Apple Insider, the first 2 of them. He does pretty good stuff. Go forward. There we go. Play.
The M3 MacBook Air is official, and with it come a couple of big changes that users have been requesting. Let's dive into everything that is new on the updated M3 MacBook Air, how this is going to impact the MacBook lineup, and when you can get your hands on them. We don't need to spend a lot of time on design because basically nothing has changed. This is purely a spec update focusing on the internals. The M3 MacBook Air comes in both a 13.6 and a 15.3-inch flavor depending on your needs. They have the same ports as the last generation, including a MagSafe 3 port alongside 2 Thunderbolt ports on the left and a headphone jack there on the right. These machines come in 4 different colorways, but with a big tweak. So you can get it in silver, starlight, space gray, or midnight. The midnight version though, which is what I have here on my M2 MacBook Air, got tweaked. It now has a new anti-fingerprint coating, the same one found on the Space Black MacBook Pros. You can see how grubby this one frankly looks just living here in the studio. Just from natural oils on your hands. This should no longer be a thing with the M3 version of the Midnight MacBook Air. These are of course based on the latest M3 line of 3nm Apple Silicon. Each M3 comes with an 8-core CPU as well as an 8 or a 10-core GPU. The CPU is still split into 4 high-performance cores and 4 high-efficiency cores. The 13-inch version is the one that makes you choose between either that 8 or that 10-core GPU, but if you opt for the 15-inch version, you're immediately upgraded to that 10-core GPU across the board. It's still going to be a few days before I have the M3s here in the studio and I can actually run my own benchmarks. But if I look at our M3 version of the 14-inch MacBook Pro and compare it to the M2 version, we were seeing about a 20% boost there in performance. Those benchmarks should be fairly accurate. The biggest difference between the MacBook Air and the 14-inch MacBook Pro is going to be active cooling. So sustained performance is definitely better on the MacBook Pro line, but for quick benchmarks like Geekbench, especially on the single core front, they're pretty emblematic of what we're actually going to see here. So I would expect that we're going to get about a 20% improvement on performance on the M3 version of the MacBook Air. The M3 line brings plenty of other changes to it too, besides just better performance for the CPU and the GPU. There's hardware accelerated ray tracing and mesh shading, AV1 decoding, and a faster neural engine, which leads to more expeditious on-device machine learning. Apple's really leaning into the AI angle here, saying this is the best consumer device for AI processing. So, we'll see how that actually plays out. Paired with the new M3s is up to 24 gigs of unified memory, and yes, before you ask, it still starts at 8 gigs. The M3 isn't the only internal change here though. We also have a new Wi-Fi chip, upgrading from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 6E. Wi-Fi 6E adopts the 6 GHz band of spectrum alongside 2.4 and 5. Apple says that should yield up to twice as fast Wi-Fi performance, but that means 2 things. A, you have a router that supports Wi-Fi 6E, and B, we usually only see those really big gains in terms of performance in areas that are kind of congested with Wi-Fi bands, like apartment buildings and in cities. So if you're outside of that area, you may not see as much of an improvement in terms of Wi-Fi. I think Wi-Fi 7 coming down the line is going to be a much bigger jump. Plus, and sorry if I buried the lead here, but this is the other oft-requested user feature, it supports 2 external displays. But there's kind of a catch. See, it only supports 2 external displays when the laptop is closed in clamshell mode. Now, don't get me wrong, that's great if you are a desk worker, you can have 2 large displays going at the same time, be more productive, it's really useful. But if you were planning on using the display on your MacBook Air, you're only going to be able to use 1 external display. So it's definitely still limiting. When your MacBook Air is open, you can support 1 external display at 6K resolution, but when you have it closed, the second display will be up to 5K in resolution. It will not support 2 6K external displays at the same time. That gives us a few different options in the MacBook Air lineup. The M1 version of the MacBook Air is gone. It is out of here. Apple has discontinued it. In its place at the entry-level position is the M2 version of the MacBook Air. The M2 is sticking around at a new lower price point. Then the new M3 version comes in both that 13 and 15-inch version. The M2 MacBook Air, its new lower price point is $999, while the M3 version starts off at $1099. The 15-inch model will bump you up to $1299 to start out. And for education customers, knock $100 off of all those price tags. These new machines will start hitting store shelves starting on March 8th, and you could order them right now. Now, these are brand new, but we've already started gathering some deals that have been coming up across the internet, and we've grabbed the best deals and we put them down below in the description. But I want to know, what new model are you picking up? Are you going for the 13 or the 15-inch version? And do you want to go for the midnight color without these fingerprints on it? Or do you like one of the other colors? Let me know in the comments or on Twitter at Andrew_OSU or in threads at Andrew O'Hara 941. Otherwise, stay tuned and be sure notifications are turned on and you're subscribed to Apple Insider so you do not miss all of our hands-on coverage when the new machines officially launch.
Yeah, the whole thing stopped.
Yeah, we were getting about a 1 frame per second frame rate
Yeah,
on that one after it played for a little while.
yeah, at the end it actually stopped on here.
And your
Not-
video was frozen for about 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I don't know. I have no idea. Comments about the video? At the M3 MacBook Air? Questions? Okay, shall we try another one? This is a pretty long one. This is
Yeah.
also Apple Insider about all the features in 17.4. Let's see what happens.
Apple has just released iOS 17.4, which contains a bunch of new features, new emoji, CarPlay enhancements, and tons of changes for the EU. I'm going to tell you about all of it in this video. Welcome everybody to Apple Insider. It is Andrew here, and as I mentioned, Apple has just released iOS 17.4. This update is available right now for you to download on your iPhone. Apple's also released other software updates, including iPadOS 17.4. There's updates for Apple TV, HomePods, Apple Watch, the Mac. The whole gamut is getting an update, and I'm going to break down all of these new features here in iOS 17.4 that you can start enjoying today. So let's go ahead and walk through all these changes, everything from emoji to CarPlay to stolen device protection. There's a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and dive into it. First things first, I've got my iPhone 15 Pro Max, and I've just now updated to iOS 17.4, which, as again I said, is available right now to download. Before we get into the fun changes that are going to make sense for everybody, there's also a very specific set of features that are coming in iOS 17.4 that are only going to be relevant for users in the EU. So I'm just going to summarize them real quick, and if you want to learn more about all these features, check out my dedicated video on them. But just to keep it brief here, users in the EU will soon be able to download third-party app marketplaces from the App Store and download apps from other sources besides Apple. They'll also be able to set default browsers besides Safari, and third-party browsers will be able to rely on their own web engines besides Apple's WebKit. We're going to see third-party wallet apps, and those will also be able to take advantage of the iPhone's NFC chips. These changes are all rolling out now with 17.4, but it's going to take a little bit before we actually see any of these marketplaces and apps actually show up, so give it a little time. But Apple has laid the groundwork here in 17.4. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the new features that are going to apply to everybody. I always find this funny. Everyone loves talking about battery on the iPhone, and we have a change here in 17.4. So we're going into settings, then battery. Apple has broken it down. So there's battery health and then the charging optimization. When we go to battery health, it gives you that normal designator. So basically letting you know how your battery health actually is, not just your capacity and cycle count and all of that. This is exclusive to the iPhone 15 line, so the 15s and the Pros, they're the ones that have like the cycle count here. Now they also have this battery health information, tells you that it's normal. Apple also says they've upgraded the battery capacity. So before it said 80% at 500 cycles was in Apple support documents. Now Apple has reached out and saying they're upgrading this. They're actually making it longer. So it should still be at 80% over 1,000 cycles. So I'm at 177 from launch, and I'm down to 99% capacity. I don't think that is bad at all, but it gives you that battery health. Notice right here at the top in plain English what you're actually looking at. Inside of podcasts, Apple has these new features, notably transcripts. These are really cool, and you can even search in them. If you're looking for a podcast, might I suggest HomeKit Insider? I hear it's great. The host is pretty awesome. Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into a podcast, maybe that HomeKit Insider that I mentioned. So here we are playing an episode of HomeKit Insider, and it has automatically pulled up this transcription. There's this little icon in the corner that looks like the lyrics button inside of the music app, but when you tap on that, it pulls up the transcription and then syncs along in real time. So as the hosts are talking, it moves along with that text. And you can search through this, as I said. So if you're looking for a specific part of the podcast, like maybe Roomba there, you can do it. It'll search through and find all those instances. I love this. I think this is super cool. Apple says they are doing this automatically on upload for new podcasts, and it's going to be retroactively added to older episodes as well. Right now at launch, it seems this is going to be available in English, German, French, and Spanish. Hopefully more will be coming in the future. As another small note, the Listen Now button has just been renamed to Home, and the same thing applies in the Music app. It also now just says Home instead of Listen Now in that bottom bar. There's also insights coming to Apple Music too. I love all these new updates. Every time Apple adds new software features, I get so jazzed about it. And there are still more here in iOS 17.4 that I want to tell you about. And I'm going to in just a minute because I need to talk to you about eSIMs, why this is one of my favorite features that Apple has added to the iPhone, and our sponsor for this video, Olafly. When traveling abroad, there are so many things to worry about between is this a safe area to be in? Or is my plane flight going to be canceled because it's on a 737 MAX? It's so much stuff. The one thing you shouldn't have to worry about is the data on your phone. Usually when you travel abroad, there's limited Wi-Fi. Data roaming charges are ridiculous, and trying to get a local SIM card can be a pain in the butt with huge lines at the airport. That's why I use an eSIM like Olafly. It's so easy to do. You just visit the Olafly website, you choose your destination, including all of these countries in Europe, then choose how long you're going to be there and how much data you want. You can even opt for a local phone number or unlimited data if that's your thing. Recently, my wife and I traveled to Iceland, and an eSIM was an absolute must. I mean, we used it to send photos to everyone back at home. We used it to translate menus and signs and people. And of course, we could use actual maps to navigate to coffee shops or to our next destination. I do not know what I would have done if we didn't have an eSIM on our phone. Next time you travel, check out Olafly. It's simple and reliable with 24/7 customer support, more than 160 destinations worldwide, and affordable plans starting at $1, going all the way up to unlimited data for the time of your travel. Thanks again to Olafly for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to talking about those new features coming to your iPhone. Apple is adding new emoji. There are over 100 new emojis added in total. The latest version of Unicode here. Some of my favorites that we're seeing, like the Phoenix, the Lime, Shaking Head, Brown Mushroom. There's a there's a broken chain one. There's just a ton of here that you can access, all in iOS 17.4. Apple's digital assistant. So down here in settings, then Siri and search. What used to be like this announce messages with Siri option, this is now just called messages with Siri or messaging with Siri. Now these are all new, but now this new option for read messages. So you can add additional languages here. So that way it can do multiple languages, and when it's reading them back, it could read them back in a separate language from what you are sending them in. So this is very cool new option for messaging with Siri, which has also been renamed. In messages, Apple is adding what it calls post-quantum encryption. If you have questions about it, let me know down below in the comments and I can expand on it more. I love CarPlay, and we're going to see one big change to CarPlay here in 17.4, at least in supported vehicles. So for certain vehicles that support the dual screen setup, so there's CarPlay in your instrument cluster and on your dash in those certain vehicles, there's going to be a new instrument cluster view for Apple Maps. So when you're inside of Apple Maps, it's going to be able to show upcoming maneuvers, and Apple says you'll be able to swap between the different views with just the click of a button. So it's going to be a nice little interface option, but unfortunately not available to everybody because I know at least my car doesn't support that dual view. Everything is just contained in the infotainment system. But if you do have a dual car display, this sounds like it's going to be really cool without being the whole next generation version of CarPlay. Speaking of which, Apple is putting more work here into the new version of CarPlay. We're seeing different UI elements show up inside of the code. So some super sleuths have found all these different references, including there's a new goodbye script that'll show on the screen when you power things down. It'll just script across, just like Apple's Hello that they do on the Mac and Vision Pro and everything. There's also 8 new app categories that are showing up. So not for third-party apps, but rather for controlling your car. Things like being able to access the car's camera, the climate, closures, media, all of this stuff will be available directly through CarPlay. So Apple has introduced all these different icons to go along with them. So again, just for the next version of CarPlay, it's going to be coming out later this year, early this year, in a few supported high-end vehicles, at least at launch. Here on the home screen, we're going to long hold to edit, had the plus button. We're going to scroll down to the clock option. There's a new one, so we have clock. We have these other ones we've seen before, but we have this new one called City Digital. So this new version of the clock that you can add to your home screen. Back inside of settings, we've gone to settings, then Face ID and passcode. So Apple added the stolen device protection. There's a new option in 17.4 to have it always on. So before, it would only trigger when you were away from familiar locations like your home or your work. Now you can have it always be on, so it will not automatically turn off until you do it with biometrics. So if you want to be extra careful, you can turn this on. Inside of the wallet application for the Apple Cash Card, tapping in the icon in the top right hand corner and going down to card number, you can set up a virtual card number, which makes this easier to use, especially when you're trying to use it online. You can actually put in a card number instead of just having to use Apple Pay. So more way to use those funds without having to transfer them to a bank account. In the Apple TV app, if you're going to watch something, how to watch, these are no longer like the cards they were for, and now they're listed as more of a list. So this is just a little bit easier so you know how to jump into different apps to play anything from the TV app. I've gone here into the App Store and I've gone to my account. And when I go to purchase history, I can now actually see all of my purchases, including things that aren't just apps. So if there's been any music or any movies, anything like that, that I have also purchased, those can show here. You can search all that stuff as before, but basically now this is showing everything purchased with your Apple ID from one spot inside the App Store. Since we're talking about the App Store, Apple did make a new change here. So Apple will now be allowing game library apps. So these are ones like GeForce Now from NVIDIA, the Xbox Cloud Gaming app. Those before had to be running in the web browser before you could play them. Now they can actually be part of the App Store and have a whole catalog of games that you can stream or play from your phone. We're also seeing some leaked references to some upcoming Apple products here in 17.4. There have been more references to unannounced iPads and reference to an unannounced new Apple Pencil that can even include Find My support. There's a lot to talk about with this stuff, and I'm going to have to save that for another video. So make sure you stay subscribed here to Apple Insider. But that's about it. That is what is covered in iOS 17.4, a bunch of new features that you guys can all enjoy. Let me know down below in the comments what your favorite new feature of iOS 17.4, whether it's the EU changes, whether it's the emoji, whether it is something else. Let me know in the comments over on Twitter at Andrew_OSU, over on Threads at
Well, that's not working very well. Sorry about that. Comments, questions about this? I don't know if we can play more videos. I think they're all going to be like this. I'm not sure. Are we
They
there?
play okay at first, and then they slow down after a while. So do you have any short? Do you have any short ones you can jump to?
I got one minute, one next. It plays fine for me over here. It's over on the recorder that you guys are seeing. It's host. It's doing this. Any comments about this 17.4? Question?
Couldn't understand what he was saying most of the time.
Yeah, I saw something interesting earlier, not in the video, that I noticed that you can now set up a virtual credit card number in Apple Cash and not even have a credit card and pay with your Apple Cash to a place that requires a credit or debit card. I thought that was pretty interesting. I can't do it. I don't have 17.4.
I like that the watch update, if you get texts or other notifications where you could only see part of it, now if you touch the notification, you can read the whole notification. That's a very cool, better feature.
Okay. Kenji, if you want, did you download the PDF files from the BBS?
Nope.
I was going to do that and I missed. If you want to download them and put them in the chat, that's what I'm trying to do, and I forgot to do when I started the meeting, so everybody can get them.
Okay, I can do
If
that.
you're going to do that anyway.
If I'm gonna do what?
So, got, one short one from Apple. Let's see how that works. How to turn the iPhone on and off. Starts out black for some reason.
Here's how to turn off your iPhone and how to turn it back on. We'll show you how it works if your iPhone has Face ID or if it has a home button. If your iPhone has Face ID, press and hold the side button and either volume button until the sliders appear. Then drag the power off slider. If your iPhone has a home button, press and hold the side button until the sliders appear. Then drag the power off slider. To turn either iPhone back on, just press and hold the side button until the Apple logo appears. To learn more about your iPhone, subscribe to the Apple Support YouTube channel or click another video to keep watching.
I played fine, but it was only a minute.
Yeah, those were the ones that gave me problems.
Okay. The next one, not sure how long this is. I don't have the time on it for some reason. Okay, we'll give it a shot.
In this video, I put together frequently asked questions about the App Store, from downloading free apps without a password to redeeming and checking a gift card balance. If we haven't met, I'm Ellen from ellenstipsforios.com, where I help seniors master their iPhones and iPads. If you find the video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Take note that while I'm showing you this on an iPhone, you should easily be able to use the same instructions on your iPad. There are numerous free apps on the App Store, apps that can help with productivity, convenience, fun, and lots more. If you want to download free apps without entering your password on the iPhone or iPad, this video will make it easy. What we'll need to do first is open the Settings app and then scroll to the top and tap on your profile picture. And now select Media and Purchases. And when you do, a pop-up should appear and you can go ahead and tap on Password Settings and then toggle off the switch that says Require Passwords under Free Downloads. If, when you tap on Media and Purchases, you don't see password settings, well, it's because you have Face ID or Touch ID turned on for app purchases. Let me show you where to find that. So, if you don't see the password settings, we're going to tap on Settings in the upper left corner. We're going to scroll down until we see Face ID and passcode. Tap on that. Put in your passcode for your iPhone. Then toggle off the switch here that says iTunes and App Store. So I'll toggle that off. And now I'm going to tap Settings in the upper left-hand corner. And I'm going to now come back into my profile at the top. I'm going to tap on Media and Purchase, and now you'll see that that password setting is available to me. Deleting an app is relatively easy. You'll want to push and hold on the app that you want to delete. So I'll push and hold, and an option will appear to remove app. I'll go ahead and tap on that. Now a pop-up window appears that lets me know that I can delete the app, or I can choose to remove it from my home screen, which will then just place that app back into the app library without deleting anything. But if I choose Delete App, it says Delete KDK Weather. Deleting this app will also delete its data. I'm going to go ahead and just say yes, delete that. And now that app has been removed from my iPhone. What happens when you delete an app and then you realize you need to recover it? Well, iCloud makes app management relatively easy. Even better, re-downloading an app costs nothing if you've already purchased it. So what we want to do is we'll want to open up the App Store. So I'm going to tap App Library and I'm going to search for App Store. I'm going to go ahead and open the App Store, and then I'm going to tap on my profile picture in the upper right corner, and then I'm going to tap on Apps. When you tap on Apps, it may take you directly to your apps. Because I have family sharing on, because I'm sharing my apps with other family members, I'm going to tap on My Apps. When I do, it comes to the apps that are on my iPhone. And so you'll see on the left-hand tab, it says All. And then over here, it says Not on this iPhone. I'm going to tap on that. And then I'm going to search for that app that I just deleted. And I believe it is the CBS Weather app. There it is. And to download that, all I need to do is tap on the cloud icon. And then that app that I deleted will be returned back to the phone. An alternative method for recovering apps is by using the App Store. And so all I need to do is come into the App Store. And this time, instead of going into My Apps and looking for apps that are no longer on my iPhone, I'm just going to come down and tap on Search. And then I'm going to search for an app that was previously on my phone. So I'm just going to type in Uber Eats. Going to tap Search, locate the Uber Eats app, and you'll see that I've already had this app on my phone because you have the iCloud icon next to it. Go ahead and tap on the iCloud icon, and that app will be downloaded back to your phone. Apple gift cards let you buy apps and subscriptions on the Apple platforms. Gift cards are added as credit to your Apple ID balance. This credit can't be shared with family members, even if you use family sharing. Here are the ways to redeem your gift card on the iPhone and iPad. So again, we need to locate the App Store. So let me just kind of scroll through here. I see it here. If I push and hold on the App Store, this is the easiest way. You'll see an option pops up to redeem. Go ahead and tap Redeem. When you do, it's going to ask you if you want to use your camera to take a picture, or you can choose to enter the code manually. Once you do, the gift card amount will be added to your Apple ID. To check a gift card balance, you'll open the App Store again. You'll tap on your profile picture in the upper right corner. And if you have a balance on your gift card, it will automatically show here. As you can see, I don't have any gift cards on my account right now, but if you did, it would show up right on this page. There are many subscription apps available in the App Store. These premium apps give content and features only available behind a paywall. Beware of when the subscription will renew, especially if you're downloading the free trial. To cancel a subscription on your iPhone or iPad, open the App Store, tap on your profile picture in the upper right corner, tap on Subscriptions, and now you'll see a list of all of the subscriptions that you have. If I want to cancel it or know when the next renewal date is, I can go ahead and tap on any of the subscriptions, and it'll tell me when the next billing date is. And if I want to cancel that subscription, I can go ahead and tap on Cancel. It's going to prompt me again, and I can go ahead and cancel that subscription. These FAQs on the App Store will help you manage your apps and know where to find the options when you need them. If you have any questions, post them in the comments section. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
That one seemed to play fine. Matched my other computer. Questions, comments about the App Store? Everybody still there?
I really liked it a lot.
I like her. She can understand what she's saying. She doesn't go too fast.
I like tapping on the little face. I didn't know I could do that to bring up all the stuff.
It's important when you get a new device and you get the freebie to keep an eye on that renewal date when you want to cancel your free offers.
Yeah, it's very helpful.
Okay. Look in the chat. Kenji, did you get the PDF files in there? Looks like you copied and pasted the text, huh?
Kenji is muted.
Kenji's muted. It's not, you didn't upload the PDFs, but I see you copied and pasted the text. So those are clickable links in the chat.
Right.
I would imagine, right?
Isn't that what you wanted me to do?
Oh, usually I would think I was going to upload the PDF file so people could download it for later, but that's fine. They're on the BBS as always. And I'm trying to remember to put it up to the beginning of the meeting, the PDF, so they can get it in here. Okay. So maybe the video is okay now. Let's hope for it. Move on to the next one. Any more comments, questions about this? Okay, let's try another one. This is from Gary. Common misconceptions about the desktop. Not too long. Here we go.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Let me help you better understand what it means when we refer to the desktop on a Mac. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 2,000 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you could read more about it, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So when we talk about using your Mac, there are actually 3 different things that are referred to all the time as the desktop or a desktop. I'm going to refer to them as the desktop with an emphasis on the desktop folder with an emphasis on folder, and desktop spaces with an emphasis on spaces. These are all related, but they mean different things, and understanding what they are and how they are different is one of the keys to understanding your Mac. So first, let's start here. This is what you might call the desktop. You see a lot of different things here, and there are actually many different layers. In addition to that, if you look in the Finder, either under iCloud Drive or in your Home folder, you're going to see a folder called Desktop. The proper way to refer to this is the desktop folder. And then finally, if you were to use Mission Control, like I'm going to use Control up arrow to bring up Mission Control, you'll see at the top Desktop 1. And if you add another by clicking the plus button to the right, you'll see Desktop 2. These are desktop spaces, and they're often thought of as multiple desktops or having more than one desktop. But in fact, there is only one desktop, but you can have multiple desktop spaces, and I'll explain how these work as well. So first, let's talk about what makes up the desktop. There are actually many different layers that go into building all of this that you see here. So for instance, let's start with the bottom layer. And this is just the image that's on the desktop. It's called the desktop background, or more recently Apple's taken to calling it the desktop wallpaper. And it's either something Apple provides, including some animated ones, or it's a picture that you select, or it could even be a solid color. So this is just the image, and it's the bottom layer of the desktop. On top of that, you'll also see desktop widgets. This is new in macOS Sonoma, and you don't necessarily have to have any desktop widgets. But if you do, that kind of makes up the next layer that sits on top of the desktop wallpaper. On top of that, we'll see some icons that represent locations or drives. So for instance, here on this desktop, we can see the Macintosh hard drive at the top right. If you actually go to Finder, Settings, and then you look under General, you could see the 4 different types of items that could appear here. So you've got those things in that layer. So the next layer shows you files and folders. This is actually the contents of the desktop folder. So if we look on this desktop, we can see there are 4 files here. If we look in iCloud Drive, which is where I have the desktop folder in this case, and I look in the desktop folder, I can see those same 4 files. So these aren't in 2 different locations. This is just one location, and you see the same file two different ways. So any files you put in the desktop folder are going to appear on the desktop in that files and folders layer. And if I were to do something like, let's say, select this file here and then delete it, you could see how it's gone from here because it's only one location. The layer here showing your files and folders is the same as this desktop folder. It's one location, just two different ways to view it. So you've got that layer there as well. On top of that, you've got the final layer, which includes any app windows that you have open. So this could be Finder windows from the Finder app or any windows from any app you're using. Those will make up the top layer of the desktop. So let's look at some common misconceptions. It's often said that when you place files and folders on the desktop, that they're on the desktop, as in that's their actual location. But the real location is here in the desktop folder. You're simply seeing the contents of the desktop folder in the Finder and also in a layer here on the desktop at the same time. So if you want to be accurate, when you add a file or folder to the desktop, it's getting added to the desktop folder, which you can also see on the desktop. And also keep in mind that the only special thing about the desktop folder is that you can see these files as a layer on the desktop. You could put the same files to the Documents folder. It's just another location on your hard drive. It only gives you a little bit of convenience to actually access the files from the desktop, whereas in the Documents folder you don't have that bit of convenience. But on the other side, it also creates a little bit more of a messy work environment as you're going to see these on your desktop as you're working in other windows. That's why I prefer to actually not put files and folders on the desktop at all and leave my desktop folder completely empty and just have all my files and folders in the Documents folder. Now, misconception number 2 is similar. It's that hard drives and other locations are not actually on the desktop. These are just shortcuts to get there. So if I double click on Macintosh hard drive here, it opens up Finder window and shows me Macintosh hard drive. But I don't need to have that there. That's just a convenient way to get to it. If I were to go in the Finder and create a new Finder window and then go, say, to the computer level, I could see the top level here, see all of the drives that could appear here, and I can easily get to the same location. So these icons here are just basically a way to quickly access different drives and other locations. They aren't actually on the desktop. That's not their location. Now also, app windows themselves, like this Finder window here and this text edit window here, aren't necessarily on the desktop. They are kind of floating above it. They're not actually desktop elements, but things above the desktop. And that brings us to our fourth misconception, and that's about using mission control and spaces. So if I were to bring up mission control and I've got this one desktop space here, if I click the plus button, it's not correct to say I've created another desktop. You haven't. You still only have one desktop. What you've done here is create another desktop space. So on this desktop space, I can see the same desktop background, the same layer with hard drives and other locations, the same layer with files and folders, the same layer with widgets, but I'll see different app windows. So if I bring up the Reminders window here, for instance, there's the Reminders window. If I go back into Mission Control and look at the desktops, you can see I've got the Reminders window in this desktop space, and I've got these two windows, Finder and Text Edit, in this desktop space. So it's not correct to say that I've got two desktops. I've actually got one desktop with two desktop spaces. The only difference between these two spaces is the app windows that float above it. Otherwise, the desktop itself is the same. It's showing you the one and only desktop in both of these locations. If you take a look at the different layers here, you can see all of the layers are actually the same across both desktop spaces, and you simply have different app windows every time you create a new desktop. I'm often asked about things like, can I have different files or folders on different desktops? And of course you don't have different desktops. There's only one. Desktop spaces only have one desktop shared between them, and that includes the layer with all the files and folders. So the idea of having, say, these 4 files here on this desktop space and then going to this desktop space and having different ones doesn't make sense, because you're seeing the same layer, the same contents of the same desktop folder. And think about how it would work if it was the other way. If you created a second desktop space and that had different files and folders in it, you couldn't just have one desktop folder like this. You'd have to have 2 or 3 or 4, however many desktop spaces you had. You'd have to have different desktop folders with the contents that would be shown on each desktop space. And in that case, what would happen if you would simply close a desktop like this? Would those files then be deleted? Would they be gone? Would they merge back with this desktop folder? It would get pretty complex pretty fast. So remember that in Mission Control, no matter how many desktop spaces you create, there's only one desktop shared between all of them and simply different app windows that can float on top of that desktop in each space. If it makes it any easier, when using Mission Control, don't think of this as desktop 1 and desktop 2. Think of this as desktop space 1, desktop space 2, and so on. So in summary, remember when using the term desktop to specifically think of whether you're talking about the desktop folder, or desktop spaces. And remember how they're all related. I hope you find this useful. Thanks for watching.
Alrighty then, that seemed to play okay. I think we're all good.
No, it was down to 1 frame per second by the end. I suggest maybe we save the next one for next week because it's over 12 minutes. It's almost 13 minutes and it's images. So if it slows down to 1 FPS, it's probably going to be pretty bad.
It looked okay to me.
I loved his graphic representation of the desktop.
Okay, comments, questions about the desktop?
Can you not hear us again, John? Can you hear us? I think John's
So
lost.
yeah, that's okay. It's almost 4 o'clock. We can skip the 12-minute one and go Q&A. You want to do that?
Somebody was just commenting on the video and you interrupted
Well, this is the
him.
one we're going to miss. That's a 12-minute one. We'll save that. We'll go
I
on.
think
I
John
don't
lost
think
his
he can
sound
hear
again.
us.
The Q&A.
John.
And for Q&A, we will stop the recording. The people on YouTube, if you want to participate in the Q&A,
John,
can
can
come
you
to the
hear
DVMUG
us?
meeting on Tuesdays
Cannot
at
hear
3
us.
o'clock.
No, it doesn't look
This
like
could
it.
get
Say
comical.
bye-bye to the
Let's
YouTube
see how
people.
long it lasts.